guys, this is our presentation on Chapter 8, Formative and Summative Assessment. Our group members are Michelle Silva and
Roxana Barrientos.
Christian Sanchez.
Allison Gonzalez.
And Nicolas Ortiz.
Our first slide is our key terms. The first key term is formative assessment, which helps us understand students' reading, development, and learning across lessons, units, marking periods, or academic years. Additionally, informs reading instruction that in turn provides experiences that further influence students' development. Our second key term is summative assessment, which provides a summary of student achievement. Furthermore, it can help us measure student achievement in relation to curriculum goals and district or state learning standards. Our third key term is high stakes tests. Our examples of summative assessments as the results are used to compare students and to determine which student meets achievement benchmarks. Our fourth key term is common core state standards. Academic standards are pre-established learning outcomes such goals which demand students to work towards complex reading and reading related performances.
Our fifth key term is the Partnership for Assessment of Readiness for College, or PARC. And the definition is develop performance assessments that provide measures of cognitive strategy and skills and content area knowledge gain. The sixth definition is the Smarter Balanced Assessment Consortium, and it works with PARC to test the reading prowess that students must possess to succeed at these tests such as high stakes tests. The seventh key term is proximal development, which means that it holds importance to the student's development and teacher assessment because of the effectiveness it creates within students' level of accomplishment. And my eighth key term is reading program effectiveness. The actual effectiveness of reading judged by examining how many students meet or fail school district and state benchmark performance levels and standards. Afflerbach goes on to say that effective reading program includes both formative and summative assessments, and they reflect the careful consideration of how these two general classes of reading assessment must work together.
So on this slide is the video we selected for the presentation. It is called Formative and Summative Assessment. At this time, if you could please pause the video and take the time to watch this. So the video reflection for the video of formative and summative assessment, how are they different? It talks about the characteristics of each assessment. For summative assessment, it's to inform teachers, parents, administrators how students are doing at a particular point in time. In formative assessment, the primary user is the learner. In summative assessment, it tends to happen post-instruction. And in formative assessment, the learner uses data from the lesson to make decisions on what they know, what they need to practice on, and what they still need to learn. For summative assessment, it's of the learning, of the what. You know, did the student understand what they were learning? And in formative assessment, it's more of the learning process of the what and how. And this happens during instruction. In summative assessment, it's more of a evaluative feedback grade. Once the assessment's done, the way you evaluate students is on a 100-point scale or any grade scale. In formative assessment, it's more of a descriptive feedback. And that's it.
Our first key point is on formative assessment. Formative assessment is a way for teachers to see how their students are doing and making sure they know the material. as well as to see if they are not faring well in the topics or solution being taught. Some characteristics of formative assessment include part of effective planning, focus on how students learn, central to classroom practice, a key professional skill, sensitive and constructive, fostering motivation, promoting understanding of goals and criteria, helping learners how to improve, developing the capacity for self-assessment, recognizing all educational achievement. And in the picture here, it's the formative assessment process. It is a process planned using evidence to make instructional adjustments and or verifying learning, involves giving specific student feedback that is turned into student action, and it is not a one-time thing, unplanned, moving on or spending more time on a topic regardless of evidence, and grading.
Proximal development. Afflerbach states, it helps teachers identify student zones of proximal development in which student achievement and related motivation to learn can continue to develop. On page 219, Afflerbach goes on to say that the determination of where the student is accomplished with formative assessment. With the information gained through formative assessment, the teacher determines what a student needs next, and the instruction and learning that will help move the student through the zone of proximal development. Proximal development is directly related to the effective teaching and learning in the zones of proximal development to revolve around the idea that teachers are able to determine with necessary detail students' current level of accomplishment and achievement.
In key point 3, the need for formative assessment. Formative assessment helps prepare students for the summative assessment. It serves as a guide for both student and teachers along the path to reading achievement, which is demonstrated when meeting a particular standard. It's important to know when students need to successfully meet a particular standard. Effective teaching and learning in zones of proximal development revolve around the idea that teachers are able to determine the necessary detail, students' current level of accomplishment and achievement. The determination of where the student is accomplishment with formative assessment. The information gained through formative assessment helps teachers determine what a student needs and the instruction and learning that will help improve the student through the zone of proximal development. Informed by formative assessment, teachers create instruction that helps students progress from their current level to the next.
So our fourth key point is, what do summative assessments do? Because we've been talking about formative assessments. So there are many characteristics that define what summative assessment is and what it does for both the students and the schools. So summative assessments help determine where students are in their education throughout the year. So whether this be at the end of a lesson, the end of a unit, or the end of the year, basically just to get a hint of where the students are in their learning objectives. So these assessments are used to evaluate teachers, programs, and schools to make sure, are students meeting the standards set by the school district, to see, like, are they progressing where they need to be. So summative assessments, basically, they're just the summary of student achievement by their grade level, and they cannot be assessed without formative assessment. So they make up, summative assessments are made up by the school year's worth of formative assessments.
This one's about Jorge's class. Key point 5, Jorge is teaching a 3rd grade class and is working towards having his students meet the Common Core State Standards, or the CCSS. Formative and summative assignments help him guide his students by showing him where they stand, and it allows him to guide his students towards their goals better. Afflerbach said that the task analysis yields information that helps Jorge and colleagues focus on related formative assessment. Overall, Jorge pays attention to the levels his students are at and looks at their metacognitive strategies to determine how they should best proceed.
A strategy for successful formative assessment could be having students, as cited in the textbook, could be having students compare information from two different sources. So first, the instructions from the teacher would help explain to the students that they're meant to take notes and analyze both source materials. And the second step would be having the students in the class make a Venn diagram, possibly in groups, so they can get information from one another before they present. And then students can display what they think is similar and unique between those two sources, which would give the teacher a way to assess whether or not the students are having trouble connecting points or finding what's different, and basically just seeing where they are with the information that they have.
Summary, every class has to meet a certain set of standards called the CCSS, and meeting these shows us that the class and teacher are doing a good job of facilitating and learning their subjects. Formative and summative assessments have to be used in the right portions to track your students' progress and help them effectively. Formative tells you a student's immediate needs, and summative is how a student is doing by the end of your class. Overall, with these standards and assessments, teachers are expected to ensure all their students are ready to succeed by the end of the year. These are our references.
Oh, sorry. And these are just the references we used. Thank you for listening to our presentation.
Thank you.